The longest possible trip you can take on GO Transit / with the Presto card is from Peterborough to Niagara Falls. This trip takes about 5 hours with express buses. I was insane enough to do this very thing a little while back and document the whole thing. You take a guess what this video is about? Okay, so cutting to the chase, the plan was to get from where I was out to Oshawa, then from there get out to Peterborough, take the next express bus back to Oshawa, and then make my way to the falls from there. Now, if you were to do this, I would recommend doing it in that order, as it's much better in my opinion to end the trip with Niagara Falls rather than Peterborough. So, at Scarborough Centre, I took Route 94 to Pickering and transferred to Route 90 to Oshawa. Now, why did I do it this way instead of taking the train? Well, at this time and on this day, which is a Saturday, the first GO train out to Oshawa didn't leave my station until 9:13, and my bus was at 8:55. I took the first bus of the day because with how long this trip takes, I knew that I had to get on the first one, and this is the only way to do that, sadly. I had to wait more than 30 minutes at Oshawa for the 88, but taking the later 90 from Pickering would have resulted in a 5-minute transfer, leaving no room for possible delays. But after that, it was time to start the real part of the trip, heading out to Peterborough. Taking the non-express bus takes around an hour and a half, and is mostly done on Highway 35 and 115. You make a lot of stops in Bowmanville, and then after that, it's nothing but park and rides until Peterborough. Once arriving at the frankly underwhelming downtown terminal, I had an hour to kill until the next express bus back to Oshawa, which is where the main part of the trip starts, getting from end to end. Despite my return bus being packed, almost every single seat was taken, it was a great ride back to Oshawa as it was the express bus, meaning that we made no stops and made it to Oshawa in 1 hour flat. It was then time to transfer to the GO train, and funny enough, this so happened to be on the day of a Jays game happening downtown, so there was a lot of people at the station and on this train till exhibition. Not too much to write home about on the actual train part. It was around 2 hours straight to Burlington because the Lakeshore East and Lakeshore West are conjoined, so I just made a layover in Union and then continued all the way to Burlington. But it was kind of interesting as we were delayed by the crowds, and to make up for that, to allow people like me to transfer Burlington, we skipped 2 stops at Bronson Appleby. Hopefully no one needed that train at those stations. I made it to 12B and we hit the road. This part, to be honest, was a bit of a slog. There were a lot of times where the QW was backed up a lot, but at least the entire highway wasn't blocked off like it was going westbound. Yikes. We were around half an hour late getting to the falls, and I stopped the timer at 5 hours and 5 minutes. I got off the bus, walked down to the falls, and stayed in the city for a few hours to see the falls, walk around downtown, and pay $10 for a drink at Starbucks, before it was time to head back. Of course, I had to make it back to Toronto, and that was an adventure in its own right. To start, for whatever reason, my bus was 30 minutes late getting to the stop at Stanley Avenue, despite the terminal being 10 minutes away, and I shit you not, the bus was so full, I had 2 options: stand or sit on the floor. I'm not exaggerating, here's the footage. In fact, at least 10 people got left behind at the stop. Despite this, I was glad that there was no traffic on the QEW at this point, as whatever happened earlier cleared up at this point, which was weird because this was only like maybe 3 hours after I had gone on the QEW to the falls. I got to Burlington, transferred to the train, and took it back to my home station. I was so tired at this point that I got no footage on the train ride back home. It doesn't help that the GO train views are really bad at night because of the lights, which wouldn't have made for good footage anyways. Now, would I recommend doing this? If you live on the Lakeshore Corridor, allowing easy access to one of the 2 endpoints, absolutely. This is an insane journey, and for people like me, a lot of fun to do. But there's a few things I would recommend you do first. First of all, make sure you're taking the 88C and 12B during the trip, as without them, the trip grows from 4.5 to 5 hours to taking almost 6 hours. Secondly, when it comes to money, make sure you use a weekend GO pass if possible. If you don't know how it works, I won't be able to explain it well enough in this short time frame, but I can make a video on it later. And it brings down the cost a lot. Seriously, without it, as a student, I would have paid $50 for my trip, but I was able to pay $10 plus the trip that I had to take out to Oshawa, which is straight away from my pass. Also, if you're doing this in the summer, try to take the direct train from Union to not run into the issue I did on the 12B return trip. I might also make another video specifically about that because there's a lot to unpack there. But if you have no choice but to take the bus because of the 6 hours in between trains, it runs 3 a day, then be forewarned that the crowds are insane, and maybe get on at the GO station instead of at Stanley Ave, and you have a better shot at getting on and getting a seat. The other thing I'd recommend has nothing to do with the trip itself, but just be a bit prepared. It is a long trip between these two cities, and all in all, my day from start to finish was 16 hours. But if you decide to do this, it is definitely going to be one hell of an adventure.